the MFM Tools, a division of the Mikaisu Group of Companies, has been appointed as our sales, service, and rental depot based in Fort McMurray. Colin, let's get right into it. F1, Red Bull completely in control of this F1 Drivers and Constructors Championship. What are they doing so well that they're making this almost a one-team race?
It's definitely not one thing. There was a rule change over the off season that the FIA imposed a different floorboard in an attempt to change the weight distribution of the cars. They were really concerned with the amount of tire wear and the way that tire management was happening in 2020. But with the new floorboards, it really seemed to advantage the Red Bull cars. They have what's known as a high rake configuration. So the rear end of their car, the way the floorboard sits, the back end is a little bit higher than the front end relative to a car like the Mercedes. Now, Mercedes has run away with pretty much every championship the last 7 years, but this one change from the FIA really threw things into disarray. With Mercedes, they've essentially stopped developing their car, where it seems like Red Bull is concentrating a lot of their money into this year's car. So the big story that's going to be coming out, towards the end of this year, leading into next year with the complete new car, with the strict cost caps that are there, is whether, Red Bull is kind of sacrificing what they're going to have next year in favor of this year's car and the development that they're doing or not. But, it seems like they've got a really good power plant, but really it's just the balance of the car with this change. It just, once in a while the FIA does this, and this was kind of a common thing for F1 to do back in the Bernie Ecclestone days, is they would kind of change the rules to favor a certain team. They want to see Ferrari winning every couple of years. They want to kind of juggle it around a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this change was really based on the new tire that came out this year, but definitely has favored Red Bull. I think, unless something drastically changes, or they really fall off their game or get a whole pile of bad luck, I mean, this is starting to turn into a runaway.
Colin, it seems like there's a lot more penalties being assessed in this year. Why is that, and is that something that fans would be not wanting to see?
There's a couple. I mean, that's a tough question to answer. There's a lot of really legitimate penalties being issued, and there's a lot of kind of crazy, nonsensical penalties that are coming out. I mean, last weekend was probably one of the most penalized races that I've seen in recent memory. Things like, they've said publicly that they want these guys to be able to race. They want, drivers to be settling things more on the track than letting race control have their say. But, as an example, there was at the beginning of the race, which is kind of typically more leniently looked at than things that happen mid-race or once things have been strung out. McLaren driver Lando Norris was on track, with Sergio Perez, the Red Bull driver. Perez tried to make an outside move, which is really risky, and the driver that goes to the outside is the one that's taking the risk. They didn't make contact. Lando Norris held his line, pushed a little bit, but that's kind of common, for a car to want to wash out to the outside of the track. Norris was given a 5-second penalty in the race, and then ended up with 2 penalty points for forcing another driver off the track. Conversely, later on in the race, Sergio Perez, the driver that was forced off, forced a different driver, Charles Leclerc from Ferrari, forced him off the track twice, which landed him 4 penalty points, 2 for incident 1, 2 for incident 2. I don't know. It's kind of getting out of control because these guys are saying that they want the drivers to handle things on track. And the problem that I have with a lot of these things, they've talked a lot this year about track limits. So track limits are, kind of arbitrary lines on the track that if you run wide, you can theoretically get a time advantage. And they're penalizing drivers in practice and in qualifying by deleting their laps. So if you happen to get your tires just to the outside of this arbitrary line, that lap time doesn't count. If it happens in the race, you get a warning, you get a second warning, and then you start getting disqualified. Um, it's I don't know. It's very hard-handed to look at things like this. I would rather see these guys, kind of pull their head out of their backside and say, okay, we know what the time advantage is if you're going to run wide. If you run wide, we're just going to penalize you this much time. That lap, we're going to add a second to your lap time. There's no way that, cutting these corners is going to be more than that. But they just seem really, really set right now in Formula One in kind of taking a lot of the fun away. You can get into a corner and you get a gust of wind and your car goes wide. That's really out of the driver's control. They're also, there's a million things that I'm not liking right now in the world of racing. So I'm trying to stay positive, but all these people around don't make it very easy.
So I was calling all things CanTorque Racing Report right now. Let's shift over to IndyCar. And there's a couple injured drivers that came back. How did they fare in their return to the cars?
Not so good. Felix Rosenqvist and Rinus VeeKay involved in separate incidents, completely unrelated to each other. Rosenqvist, he suffered a concussion after a major malfunction at the Detroit Grand Prix. Rinus VeeKay, Dutch driver, broke his collarbone in training on his bike. They both happened to come back at Mid-Ohio last weekend. Rosenqvist was involved in an incident on the opening lap. Really wasn't in contention after that. VeeKay just didn't seem to have his car under him. Glad to see these guys back. I mean, head injuries are obviously no joke. They're a major issue in every form of racing. It's great that IndyCar has the protocols in place now to make sure that these guys aren't coming back too soon and really risking their long-term health.
Taking a look at the world of NASCAR, NASCAR raced on a track that IndyCar was just at, and there was quite a difference in the lap times. Were you surprised that there was that much difference in the speed of the cars?
No, not at all. They're not fair comparisons. I mean, you talk about a stock car, it's got way more power under the engine or in the engine than an Indy car. But a stock car weighs like 3,600 pounds, where an Indy car weighs like 1,600 pounds. Indy car is just designed to go fast. Lots of aerodynamics, where a stock car is a flying brick. But usually these series are a little bit more careful not to overlap this close so that the comparisons aren't made. But there's almost a 30-second per lap differential for what IndyCar does versus what the stock cars were doing. But it was great to see Road America brought back to the Cup level. Xfinity cars have been racing there for the last bunch of years. I mean, we got to do a bunch of races there with Penske over the last few years. It's just an absolutely amazing track. Again, it's a 4-mile track in northern Wisconsin. Lots of elevation changes, high speed corners, slow speed corners, sweeping corners, tight corners. Like it's got a little bit of everything. They even have a Canada corner there, which always makes us proud. But yeah, I mean, kind of the same story that we've talked about. Hendrick seems to dominate. Kyle Larson had a bit of bad luck. Was really running up front, got caught up with his teammate down at turn 5. Caused some damage, caused him to drop back. Kyle Busch, he's basically the other story of this year. He won his 101st Xfinity race. So now he's 52 races ahead of Mark Martin for the all-time wins there. He's just absolutely on fire. Now, Kyle Busch said if he ever gets to 100 wins in the Xfinity series, he's gonna retire. So it'd be interesting to see if he decides that at the end of this year, this is going to be his last season in Xfinity, and whether he can be satisfied with a full Cup schedule and the odd truck race. But yeah, I mean, I think they put on a good show there. The only issue for the stock cars, the NASCAR guys, is that the track is pretty narrow at Road America. So when you put these big kind of bulky stock cars that don't really grip all that well on a tight track, there's not a lot of room. And I mean, lots of really skilled drivers were driving off the track. So Keselowski, Kyle Busch in practice, they both tore up their race cars. Not really making big mistakes. Kurt Busch drove off it just looks like they forgot how to drive, but they're really that close to the edge that if you push a little bit too far, you can't recover in time. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see that NASCAR's, spreading their wings a little bit when it comes to, including more of these great road courses. I'd still rather not see these guys go to dirt, which is what the truck guys are going to do this weekend. But that was just a solid weekend of racing. I think I was able to watch about 9 straight hours from Formula One through Indy Lights, IndyCar, and then all the Cup stuff. So I was pretty happy this weekend.
Colin, absolutely awesome. And just quickly, it sounds like the Carters had a bit of a rock'em sock'em ride last evening. Just things a little bit off for the group.
Yeah, I mean, we can maybe chalk it up to heat stress. I'm not really sure what happened to our group last night. I know two carts are destroyed, and that actually happened before we started racing. That was on our outlap, just kind of a couple miscommunications and a lot of bent up race cars. There was a lot of tussling on the racetrack that normally our group stays pretty close together. The fast guys are way faster than the middle guys and the slow guys, but generally our group finishes within a few seconds of each other from first to second to third, so on and so forth. The two guys that ended up finishing first and second, I mean, they were a half lap ahead of third place, and I can't repeat the level of communication I had with our race director, but he described it pretty well using terms that I'm not able to repeat right at this present moment. But hopefully we got it out of our system, and we can get back to good racing, because it was just it was a disaster yesterday.
Well, Colin, better times ahead for the Carters. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Hey, thanks a lot, Stridey. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you. Thanks, Colin.
Always, Connor.
Talk to you next week.
Look forward to it, man.